Welcome to Unconfuse Me. I'm Bill Gates. You're on TV almost every night.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a schedule.
Well, okay. So my father was an oldies doo-wop legend back in the 50s. And what makes my situation unique is that I'm also the last generation raised by parents that didn't trust or believe in babysitters. So you had to go to work. You had to work with your parents. By 7, they'd teach me how to iron and steam and clean the outfits and go to the cleaners and that sort of thing. By the time I was 9, it was very normal for a 9 or 10-year-old to go to a nightclub and, ask for a ladder, give me a razor blade so I can cut these light gels and switch out light gels and everything. And when I was 10, I was operating the system inside nightclubs. Like it was just normal for a 10-year-old to operate, smoke machine and the lights and the spotlight. And then one day my dad's drummer got in a motorcycle accident. And my dad was just like, well, okay, you know the show, so you're the new leader. And my first gig, that gig was at Radio City Music Hall.
Wow.
Weird enough, right?
Nice place to start.
And my dad felt like it was a jackpot moment because, he doesn't have to pay his guy, $700 a week. For me, it's like I was the richest 11-year-old in existence. So, give him here like $200, he'll buy a bike, he'll be happy. And I became his band leader. That was the modus operandi. And whatever job was available, you did. And I think that that's what I inherited from my family. By the time I got to Fallon, I was teaching at NYU. I was starting the Questlove's food thing. I was writing books. I had my podcast. I was DJing at all odd hours of the night. There were still the Roots, literally on the Tonight Show. I invested in a hoodie store. And so I thought like the more jobs you had, like that defines your value. And then once everything was taken away in the pandemic and we had nothing and silence, I kind of realized that for health reasons like resting, silence, meditation, that's just as important. I'm trying to get to a place where I'm enjoying boring stuff like naps and nothing, the guy that used to always work. So, but I'm still writing books and
7 jobs. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's nice. The pandemic did get us to step back a little bit.
I figured the path to sanity for me was I somehow just went back to being an 8-year-old, like started drawing and sketching, started watching cartoons, started things that I wouldn't dare do in my too busy to have fun time. So like, what did you do?
Well, it was a very unusual time for me because the Gates Foundation has a lot of experts on vaccines and infectious disease. In fact, most infectious disease is in Africa and poor countries, and rich countries are very lucky there isn't that much. I mean, there's some TB, there's some HIV, but not a lot. And one of our concerns was that in the rich world, you have all this oxygen, and even though those systems are overloaded, in poor countries, you have way, way less. And so, we were trying to say, okay, how quick can we get a vaccine? How quick can we get an antibody? Now, the fact that we were involved in writing checks, we wrote $2 billion of checks. Mm-hmm. It kind of, in a way, you suspend your emotional reaction because you're at least, okay, I'm a fireman. Let's go in here and do all of that. And it was only like a year in when we finally got the vaccine to step back and say, wow, that was crazy. I mean,
so you immediately felt the pressure and the weight of the world on your shoulders, like I have to use my resources to save the world.
And we can help with this, yeah, because it's our area. In 2015, I actually gave a speech where I said, hey, everybody ought to be concerned about this. Right. And, sadly, we didn't get ready for
Mathletes versus athletes. Mathletes versus athletes.
And then there was all this insanity about misinformation that, maybe I was benefiting from it, or maybe Fauci was making money off of vaccines, things that we're so the opposite that even today, I kind of think, hey, is that a joke? But then when you run into people who are actually believe these things, so that, that was a crazy time. And even now, as we realize, okay, the kids who didn't get their schooling or some level of depression that is still higher.
Resonated, yeah.
For me personally, and maybe a little bit like you, it was so jarring that it did get me to think about my life and what I value, friendships and things. So I can't say that it was all negative. It was scary.
But just to keep you sane, like, would you go to video games or like just for a moment of sanity? Like, how did you?
I got to do a lot of reading, and one nice thing was because I had no meetings I had to go to, I started exercising, particularly playing tennis a lot more. So it really knocked me out of my normal pattern, and there are some very positive aspects of it. And now when we're going back to normal, I'm sure you're like this. It's like, okay, everybody wants you to resume all the things you were doing before. And you have to kind of force yourself to say,
don't
wait a
do
minute,
that.
there's some of these things that they weren't bad, but now, I'm living a somewhat different set of priorities. I have to add it all up. You can't do all the stuff that you learned to like during the pandemic and then all that stuff you did beforehand.
Yeah, I too thought like, okay, well, let me go back. But then, no, I'd still, like, I'd actually morphed into the person I used to laugh at. So, I don't think I was big on like meditation or gratitude or yoga or stretching or morning walks or my health or any of those things. And that was the paradigm shift I needed. It's almost like I needed the pandemic to sort of morph into who I am now. So, wow, thanks for sharing that with me.
Subscribe to Unconfuse Me wherever you listen to podcasts.